we haven't really meaningfully invested in a dollar sense within the brand marketing realm. I'd say the biggest way that we've done that is actually in the way that we've developed organic content. So if you look at Instagram Reels or our TikTok or our YouTube Shorts, there's probably 50 to 60 million views over the last 12 to 18 months there of just content that we've developed to better educate owners about how they can structure their daily routine to optimize the health of their dog. And that's all stuff that we haven't paid for.
Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to 5 Minute Founders, the show where we pick the brains of actual founders for the strategies, growth hacks, and stories of how they built their own companies. I'm your host, Matt LeBlanc, and my guest today is the founder of Pet Lab Co., Chris Masanto. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Let's jump right in. What is your business and what does it solve for?
Sure. So my business is Pet Lab Co., and really, the core mission of Pet Lab Co. is to deliver breakthrough pet health. And so what we mean by that is essentially over the last couple of decades, it's a core belief of ours that food that dogs have been eating, through the lifestyle that they've been leading, through the lifestyles their owners have been leading, that there's been this baseline of pet health that has been established. And whilst there are positive things going on there are also a host of things that we really look to correct, or that areas that we are looking to try and optimize for. You know, we think about some of the key things that really jump out at us. There's a large proportion of dogs across the globe that are dealing with pretty significant dental hygiene issues, joint issues. Seasonal allergies is definitely an area of need for dogs as far as their happiness and health goes. And so when we think about these sorts of problem states that I guess owners have to address, our belief is that in order to take dogs to the next level, it requires a breakthrough level of thinking, a breakthrough level of product development. And that's really where Pet Lab Co. comes in. It comes in from a product delivery standpoint. And the way that we do that primarily today is through supplements. We are thinking creatively about areas of a dog owner's day-to-day ritual that we can start to touch that may extend the brand into perhaps food or treats. So we're thinking about that at this point in time, but we've really delivered that kind of breakthrough pet health through that category of supplements to date. And then we're also thinking creatively about content development as well. So if you look at our Instagram or TikTok or YouTube Shorts, we're really trying to put our best foot forward, empowering dog parents with actual information and I guess better tips to just lead their lives, their own daily lives in a better way to, again, achieve that breakthrough level of pet health. So that's kind of the business. As far as a problem it solves for, I touched on it there a little bit, but really the problem is multifaceted. You know, I spoke about dental hygiene or joint health or seasonal allergies, but really there are these real key problem states that we find our pets in today. And sometimes it requires us to really educate an owner on the nature of the problem. But, you know, our goal is to really, again, take the dog from the state they're in today and really, you know, into that breakthrough health state where they're either happier, healthier, calmer, have better health span, which is a big kind of new word that's flowing through the company now. It's not just about how we can optimize for the amount of days that your dog is around, but just as importantly, if not more importantly, how healthy and happy they are in the days that they have with a dog parent. So that's Pet Lab Co. in a nutshell.
Excellent. Yeah, I read a bit about your story. So you had a dog, Crystal, for 17 years. Just to set a little bit of context, Chris, you're a bit of a serial entrepreneur as far as I can tell. You've been a founder of several other companies, worked in some stem cell health. You're a world-class growth marketer, as far as I can tell from the outside in. And so you've definitely built some companies before, but so you had this dog, Crystal, for 17 years who suffered from arthritis in the last years of her life. After she passed, you started thinking about how you could have better supported her with supplements, or basically could have been a more thoughtful dog parent is what it sounded like. And that sort of spurred you to start Pet Lab Co. So I just wonder, how do you make that jump? Were you looking for your next idea? how do you go from this person who, it seemed to me like you didn't have any real background in animal supplements. So you go from 17 years, also pretty good run with a dog. Sounds like you're a pretty awesome dog parent, right? And then you're like, but how could I have been better? Maybe I should start a whole company. How does that happen?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, you just summarize the origin story really well. Pet Lab Co started in some meaningful way because of Crystal, my childhood Labrador. And that was definitely the seed in the back of my head that was planted when I had that experience with her, which was 12, 14 years ago. It was a while ago now when she passed away. But certainly that was the personal experience that drove Pet Lab Co in a more emotional sense. As far as the other things that really catalyzed the birth of Pet Lab Co alongside that personal experience, I'd say the other thing that happened this was late 2018, was I was looking for a different entrepreneurial challenge. I had just been running a performance marketing agency called Altitude Ads out of London, really enjoying the actual function of trying to understand how to create customer acquisition for a really diverse range of brands. But really what I was looking for is a subject matter that was a bit more deeply personal and aligned to my interests. And I couldn't think of one that was more, aligned to it than dogs. I've loved dogs my whole life. So definitely that ticked the right, one of the boxes, like an interest area that was close to me. I guess the third really important thing that happened was we have this piece of software that analyzes Amazon for fast-moving categories. And so it just so happened during that phase that pet supplements was a booming category in Amazon that was really experiencing this inflection of growth as far as units sold. But when we evaluated what was happening on the D2C side, it was just very fragmented, like a couple of small minnows doing some interesting things, but really no one in our feeling that was doing a great story of educating a dog parent about the core problem that their dog was facing, and ultimately defining or validating to the customer that they were the best place to really help with that issue. So, Pet Lab Co, because of that, became at the outset just solely a D2C pet supplement company. But yeah, there was certainly that market data that informed our initial jump into Pet Lab Co. I think because of that, we have this kind of twin effect of having this personal story, but also having a really fast-moving category work together. And that's one of the core beliefs that I have as a entrepreneur. It's that, it's one thing to have a personal story, but it's that resonates and that you can speak to customers about, that, really motivates them to be part of the brand. But then it's another thing to be part of a category that's just growing as a whole. The saying is a rising tide lifts all ships. And, it turned out over the next few years that we would become really the leading player of D2C pet supplements. But, even if we didn't, my feeling is that because the category was moving so quickly at the time, that we would have benefited from that, and did eventually anyway, in becoming the category leader. So there was that piece, and then I guess the other couple of things that were relevant to really the business starting from the experience that I had was I really, in that time at Altitude Ads, developed a skill of just acquiring new customers at scale efficiently. So again, alongside those other two things, the market booming, the personal experience I had, I was very much self-aware that my superpower, so to speak, of being able to acquire customers at scale efficiently was very much helpful towards those other two factors, right? Because ultimately it was that education process that I talked about earlier that was just so critical to actually secure the sale. So that ability to storytell on social, to be able to utilize the platforms of Meta, soon to be TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, it just turned out to be a huge benefit to Pet Lab Co relative to the other brands. And I guess the fourth thing is, you mentioned that I haven't been in animal supplements my whole life, which is totally true. It was really just the personal experience that I had that was my connection to the category. But I just so happened to have a contact in the US that was formulating pet supplements. And our decision at the time was really just to build a really strong, evidence-backed, but relatively basic, I'd say, joint care supplement that just ticked the boxes that we knew needed to be ticked. So glucosamine, chondroitin, omega-3 oils, just the kind of things that we believe to be prime movers as far as supporting a dog's mobility. And, it was kind of, I suppose, a leaner approach to product development at the outset, also because we were just doing so much validation through our first, 0 to 2 years about understanding where the demand was, right? Like, obviously the first product, as per the experience that I had with Crystal, was the joint care chew. But, that kind of expanded into dental, into probiotic, into calming later on. But it was only through trial and error, through actually presenting these different products to the market and seeing the data come back, that we're able to determine which of those categories really should be the areas to focus on and where customers were finding the most frustration. So it was our feeling that, launching initially solid product formulas made the most sense without over-investing into a category that didn't have much consumer demand. So that's kind of, I guess, how we approached NPD at the outset, but we've since very much pivoted into being far more clinical about how we develop our products, given we know now where all of the pockets of demand were. So I think that kind of covers all the bases as far as, the key things that resulted in the creation of Pet Lab Co. But, certainly a multifactorial equation there.
Yeah, it seems like the stars really, really kind of aligned. Like you say, that it's sort of inspiring to hear that, it was just really your personal attachment to it that I think poured a lot of fuel on this fire, of course, in addition to all the other sort of more tangible or technical aspects that you just mentioned. But I wanted to go back to the marketing piece. You were marketing on social in the early days. I believe you were one of the top spenders on Facebook in kind of the beginning. I'm thinking, I don't know the years exactly, maybe 2010, earlier than that.
Around there.
I know that you were doing a lot of market research on social media, which was sort of a new idea at the time. I think a lot more people are doing that now, sort of doing their market research and finding out what is their consumer base really, what products are they really looking for. So I wonder if you could just touch on that. What was the impact that had on Pet Lab Co? What direction did that take you in? Or was there anything that you found that maybe surprised you in terms of products or supplements that people were wanting?
Yeah, I think to your last point, the area that surprised us the most, as far as in the last couple of years goes, is the demand for probiotic supplements. I think there is this phenomenon whereby the pet industry just trails the human industry as far as trends goes by just a couple of years. So a couple of years ago, probiotics were huge in the human space. They've become a little bit more understood in the human space today. But, I think they have reached that critical mass of understanding in the human side that now people are really willing to invest in a probiotic for their dog. And so, we have seen that to just be a huge category for us. We're definitely in kind of the top 3 as far as probiotic sales go on the platforms that we operate on. And yeah, that really has been driven by, as you had hinted earlier, a lot of the feedback that we've gotten from social as well. So, the brilliant thing about social, I find, is just that immediate feedback that you get when you develop an asset and you launch it on the platform. So, you can obviously construct the ad how you would like, but then, you get to see the amount of the video that they watched as far as, the retention at 25 seconds, you get to see the conversion rate, you get to see these really important metrics as it pertains to the actual commercial intent behind the viewer. Like, are they looking at this piece of content more from an interest standpoint or from a genuine willingness to buy? You get that by way of the kind of pixel data that flows through the platform and that shoots back to you as an advertiser. So it's that rich data that allowed us to really understand that probiotic was just this real sleeper a couple of years ago that, we've really lent into. That same value of social in providing data has played out in our dental journey. So figuring out the right dental product for dogs, made a whole bunch of missteps in that arena of, developing, albeit great products, but just different form factors that some consumers liked or didn't like. We realized through a couple of different dog dental product iterations that the actual ease of use was massively important for dog parents. We had one of our products was a really awesome kit that, combined a chew with a paste, and it was a little complex to use. We thought it was, somewhat straightforward, but really what we got back from both our customer service data, but also the comments within the ad function, was just the product was too difficult to use. There was too much complexity, and that again helped us iterate moving forward on the product that we've just most recently launched, which is our ProBright Advanced Powder, which is simply 1 scoop of the powder onto your dog's food and mix. So about as simple as you can get. So yeah, it really goes back to your point that whether it's an entire new category that has been uncovered or that you might uncover through social, or whether it's just iterating an existing product within a category, the value of social is immense in terms of the kind of feedback that you get.
Yeah, I think that another strategy that you implemented early on, and again, this is something that I think a lot of people, it's become a lot more common now, but is lean testing. I think that you were one of the first guys to be out there doing it. Can you tell us what is lean testing and maybe what impact it had on your business early on? Is it related to the probiotic stuff? Is it?
Yeah, I think, lean testing definitely was something we did earlier on as a way to mitigate risk. I think because we've been self-funded and, that's been from day one, like we haven't raised any rounds. It was really important for us that every single dollar that we put to work actually worked. And so put simply, the most direct function of lean testing was to understand whether a product was worth investing R&D dollars into. So for example, before we launched our probiotic chew, I think it was our probiotic, it was a while back now, we actually designed the product digitally. We actually built the product display page. We created the ad with one of the videographers, and we just threw a couple of ad dollars into that ad unit to the point where when someone clicked checkout, we just said that the product wasn't available and we would alert them when it was. And then to this day, even some of those customers that were alerted, when the product actually went live, got their product and are on a subscription today, which is quite cool. It's a lean test that actually has some, I guess, financial benefit, even to this day, albeit at a very small scale. But really the core thing that you get out of that whole scenario is the ability to, again, get all of that rich data flowing back to you to understand, is there something here worth investing R&D dollars into building out? Because, from formulation to the operational complexity of building teams around a new product launch, there's just a whole lot there that if you do all this without any data of whether something's going to work or not, it presents quite a bit of financial risk to the company, especially within these super nascent categories like pet supplements, right? Like the reality is that on the human side, you could probably just look to prior human supplement company experiences as to whether something was going to work or not as a category or as a form factor for a specific category. But it was just such a new space that, this sort of lean testing, I think, saved us a lot of heartache, because as many lean tests that we ran that were positive, there were also a whole bunch that were negative and that we're glad we ran because of, the data that we got. So.
Right. You mentioned before that early on there were a bunch of minnows in your space. You didn't have a whole lot of competitors. And as you've grown, you've really been able to stave off that competition. I know you guys dominate on Amazon to this day. And in fact, Amazon actually tried to come and take some of that market share themselves and developed a category to compete with you, which you were actually able to maintain your hold on the space. Can you talk a little bit about strategy or things that have helped you to dominate on Amazon, or even particularly in sort of staving off that competition?
Yeah, sure. So you're right. Over the last couple of years, the category has become more crowded, both on the D2C and Amazon side. I would say in general, our belief is that if we really focus on product, that's probably the best defense against competitors, irrespective of the platform that they come from. And so this was about 2 years ago, but we made a really concerted effort to build clinically validated products all the way to today. I mean, we spent the last 2 years really building that clinical program out, actually running clinical trials on the products that we're launching today. But, we just launched about 2-3 months ago ProBright Advance, which is our first clinically validated product, where we can actually present a study to a consumer to show them that the product, within the context of this clinical study, reduced bad breath causing compounds in a dog's mouth by 40%. And that is something very unique to us relative to the competitive set, like us being able to show them that level of proven efficacy. And again, as the category becomes more crowded, it's our belief that consumers will just shop around a little more. And because of that, they will just lean in towards the products that, in my opinion, just have the best evidence that they work. That's really one of the core aha moments that we had as far as supplements for pets goes, is that at the end of the day, when all is said and done, really what the pet parent was looking for was just a product that did what it said on the tub better than anything else. And so it was our belief that the way to best deliver against that was to go down this clinical route. That, I guess, is, the core product differentiation that we really, we really believe is key to separating us from our competitive set. I would say, that is really important, but what amplifies that competitive differentiation is definitely the amount of data that we have accumulated over the last couple of years. The reality is that we've spent, 9 figures plus on Facebook, or Meta rather, a huge amount on Google, TikTok, Snapchat, and all of that information we feed back into our data warehouse as far as the engagement for different sorts of ads that we create, the actual video assets themselves, the different variables that we are able to isolate within those videos. When we have what we believe to be excellent product and we pair that with all of this data, I think that it creates a really profoundly deep and wide moat around the business, such that if someone else came in, like an Amazon home brand, let's say, which you're right, they have come in with some of their own Amazon branded products, that same ability to compete is really muted in my mind. It's, and I guess that also just stems from the fact that if you are a pet parent looking to invest in the health of your dog, I think our intuition is that you would prefer to invest in this long-standing brand that has invested into clinicals, that has told you a really rich story off Amazon, and also on Amazon by way of some of the ad units there, than a cheaper Amazon brand that you haven't heard before. So I think that risk of Amazon coming in and competing with you is a bit more relevant for commodity-like products versus ones that I think are more functional in nature. But that's not to say that I guess they haven't taken some market share. For sure, they've done okay, but we really haven't seen yet the impact to our business in a meaningful way of those Amazon-owned brands today. But that's how we think about competitive differentiation as well, wrapped around that.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about the rich story that you've been telling for a while now. You are a CEO who is very hands-on creatively. You got a huge growth marketing background yourself. I know in the early days of the company, you were really, I believe, producing a lot of your early creative. Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you speak maybe a little bit to why that was important for you to be doing that yourself? What were the the early marks that you feel that you made on your creative or your brand or your message that, really are still holding strong today?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I'm a big believer in as far as content styles today is this idea of authenticity. And we have, if you look at our entire ad strategy and you were to draw a through line as far as something that really ties everything together, is that there is this real UGC type authenticity to the way that everything's been created. And so, it's, I guess another way to think about that is my philosophy is that for many of these emerging brands that require education and that need to be on video, on social, it's far better for one person to be in a car talking to the consumer in a really direct and authentic way than the potentially alternate way of communicating, which could be a 30-second, 30K shoot conducted in, a really manufactured setting. I'm not saying that doesn't have utility. I'm just saying that it's our belief that the former feels in today's content landscape a little bit more understandable, and it resonates with folks a little bit more, especially with something so deeply personal like pets. When I have found myself, back in the day, sitting down in front of an iPhone talking about my experience with Crystal and how that motivated me to build Pet Lab Co. with some of the world's leading experts in canine nutrition. Like, some of those assets have done the best as far as our performance goes, CPA, etc. So it's something that I don't think will change anytime soon. Just thinking about, the TikTokification of the world and just how much content out there feels, again, UGC. So it's something that we continue to lean into. As far as other marks go, I really believe that you just never know until you test something. So our testing velocity at Pet Lab Co. is pretty extreme. Like, we'll make hundreds of videos a week when it comes to, different iterations of existing videos or net new videos. We have a team of, I think, 8 videographers now, 7 or so copywriters, 3 or 4 media buyers. Like, these guys are just constantly collaborating and pumping out this UGC authentic content at scale. And all of that data is being, again, fed back into our data warehouse. And we frequently get together to understand what are the kind of core things within those creative assets that were launched that have moved the needle on view rates or conversion or purchase intent. And then that helps us improve the engine moving forward. So alongside this more UGC style of, I'd say, marketing, I'd say that the other big mark that I hope I've made, or at least been a big proponent of as the company's evolved, is just test all the time, test loads, and make sure that your learnings from those tests are used in your future creation of assets moving forward.
Chris, you beat me to my next question. I think you're so uniquely qualified to sort of speak to this. This really is kind of like the eternal debate, at least right now, is, it's brand identity or maintaining brand guidelines versus performance marketing tactics, right? I think that so many companies have such a hard time showing up authentically in social because they're hanging on so tightly to those guidelines or that idea of who they think they're supposed to be. So you are somebody who is obviously really motivated to be testing and to be, it sounds like mimicking a lot of those native trends to sort of, really fit into the environment on social, but you were also building a brand. So what advice would you have for another company who's sort of struggling with this idea themselves?
Yeah, it's a hard one because, candidly, Matt, today we haven't really meaningfully invested in a dollar sense within the brand marketing realm. I'd say the biggest way that we've done that is actually in the way that we've developed organic content. So if you look at our Instagram Reels or our TikTok or our YouTube Shorts, there's probably 50 to 60 million views over the last 12 to 18 months there of just content that we've developed to better educate owners about how they can structure their daily routine to optimize the health of their dog. And that's all stuff that we haven't paid for. And so my hope is that there is an idea there being put out into the market that Pet Lab Co. genuinely cares about creating these breakthrough pet health moments for your dog. So that's kind of the area that we're focused on brand building to date. But obviously, like that also has permeated through other elements of the business in terms of how we've thought about the actual performance side. So there is this middle ground, some call it like brandformance, but within the performance aspect, performance realm of the business, we do also think about certain messaging and consistent thoughts that we want to have a customer, have flowing through a customer's brain as they view our performance content. Though again, I will just say that we haven't invested in your more traditional brand marketing by way of, a TV advertisement or a pre-roll on YouTube that was strictly about, a certain message that you wanted to resonate within a customer's mind without any sort of CTA. And I would say that has also come out of necessity because, the beauty of performance, and Sean and you guys probably know this best, is that you really get close attribution for every single dollar that you spend, which is important for a self-funded brand. So, when we think about, when we have thought about over the last 5-6 years, the way that we spend our dollars, the actual utility that we get financially from those in the marketing world has been important to us. Hence why we've lent a little bit more into performance. But, I think that the way that we're thinking about brand marketing moving forward, and we're fortunate to be able to do this because our EBITDA has expanded so dramatically in the last 12 to 18 months. We've kind of gone from about 2 years ago around the just over break-even mark to today, producing anywhere between kind of 17 to 20%, and therefore producing a more significant amount of free cash that we can invest into brand marketing. But the way that we're thinking about it is a bit more creatively. Like we try and look at some of these really excellent brands that have built themselves really efficiently through social platforms and brand marketing, like Stanley Cup, for example. And, we kind of think of what the parallel might be for us to utilize these platforms, the viral nature of these platforms, to build a brand that resonates with consumers versus just throwing, thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars at TV ads that, obviously scale a little bit more linearly. So I would just say that, there are probably more creative ways to think about brand marketing today's landscape than that more traditional path of, just throwing dollars at the, different mediums. And I guess the final point that I would make is an exciting thing for us is we're going through a little bit of a rebrand right now that will probably launch in the next, I'd say 6 to 12 months, whereby, we'll be looking to infuse a little bit more of that clinical feel into the brand. And also, just to the point you made, define a little bit more clearly what the guardrails are around that brand marketing, which I think is really important, right? At the end of the day, there are so many different directions that a pet supplement brand could go as far as brand marketing. You could lean a little bit more into the fun, a little bit more into value, a little bit more into like high-end clinical. And so for us, like we really just want to make sure that when we start investing in brand marketing, that those kind of boundaries are defined for us. I think, to your question that you asked earlier, the mistake that I do see with other brands is that they think their brand is bigger and less flexible than it actually is. Like the reality is that if you're under probably like $500 million of revenue, it's like, especially in the US, which is just a huge market, you probably have a lot of flexibility around how you can, really deviate the path of your brand from that point onwards. Again, that's like a pure opinion, but I do think that like people overestimate the strength of their brand and underestimate how flexible it could be moving forward and how creatively they could think about it. But yeah, that obviously has to be paired with some sort of structure that defines a playground that you can work in.
Chris, as a performance marketer myself, the fact that I asked about brand creative and you started talking about organic content strategy is just it's awesome and cutting edge. Maybe it's really out of the box thinking. I think what you're doing here, and definitely a lot of people could take some wisdom from what you just said. What constitutes a world-class marketer?
I think, firstly, the way that we think about marketing at Pet Lab Co. is definitely multifactorial. And so, when we think about building any asset, whether it's organic or paid, that actual process will include a number of different teams. So, it will go through the copywriting team, the video editors, the media buyers, and there'll be a fairly significant amount of collaboration that will unfold when that specific content is made. And I think that so because of that, we've kind of veered away from this idea that there's one single person that's responsible for everything, which can happen in some organizations, I think. And we certainly have moments where someone within a company, it could be a co-founder or it could be a videographer, just ideates from top to bottom a singular video idea that will do really well. And in that case, that person would be the marketer in that sense. But the vast majority of the time, there will be this kind of staggered approach to building content and marketing, whereby different teams will be involved. And I think whether we're talking about that single individual that architects and executes everything, or we're talking about this collaboration with all of these different teams, the thing that I believe makes either of those really effective is just having this really excellent ability to be creative and understand data and be analytical at the same time. Because ultimately, when either of those two teams operate at Pet Lab Co, or rather when there has been excellent content that has been developed by either that singular person or by the team, the reality is that what preceded that is a huge amount of testing, right? And so there's been a huge amount of learnings that led up to that point where the great piece of content was made. That process necessarily means that there would have had to have been an original creative made, but often many different iterations of that moving forward, or rather after that moment that led to, that single piece of creative that ended up scaling. So I would just say that it's, that marriage between creativity and being highly analytical is super important. And, I guess another thing that I would say is, I guess it's really important for a marketer in today's day and age to really keep a close ear to the ground as far as what's happening on the different platforms, because it changes so quickly, and that can be trends, it can be new ad formats, it can be new content formats completely. But if you're able to integrate into the ideation phase many of these trending ideas, I think that's really important in, again, a landscape that changes really day to day.
Just to wrap us out here, if you were to really boil it down to its essential elements, what constitutes a successful founder?
It's so difficult, because one of the really core beliefs that I have is like, beyond a base set of realities about how businesses work, like you have to make more money than you spend, like outside of these really base realities, I've seen so many different founders with so many completely opposing qualities be highly successful in their field. The thing to be aware of is understanding what it is that you bring to the table that no one else does. I think that core self-awareness about your superpower is super important, because it also helps you build around that, which has been super important for me personally. Like for me, my real secret sauce, I'd say, is, as you mentioned earlier, being in the growth marketing and in the kind of data room, talking about was it this specific component of this organic content that really made it pop, or was it something else? It's that where I feel like I'm uniquely capable of adding value. But a lot of the other stuff that is critically important for the business, the operations, the HR, the NPD, I've really tried to hire the folks that are best in class around me. So I would say, that for me has been really important in just having like that self-awareness about what makes me, special as an entrepreneur and building around that.
Chris, it's inspiring and so well put. Really appreciate all of your time and insight today. Can you tell us where we can find you, where we can follow you or Pet Lab Co. if we'd like to learn more?
Sure. I'm not big on social, so you probably won't find me anywhere. Yeah, Pet Lab Co. is just thepetlabco.com, or you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. And yeah, throw us a like if you like the content.
Chris, one more gimme. Just a piece of advice for your average pet owner. Something that could affect a lot of people. Is there something, are they having a problem that they're not even aware of? Something that maybe you could solve, or just a message that you feel like is always good to get out?
Yeah, I think there's probably two things that I've seen the most important that the average dog parent could do a better job at. The first is that just clean your dog's teeth at some regular cadence. That could be 2 times a week, it could be 5 times a week, but if you can find a way to clean their dog's teeth, brushing is ideal. That has massive implications to both their health span and potentially their lifespan. And most people don't connect brushing a dog's teeth with potentially living a longer life. But that, there's some new research, especially guidance from really some of the top veterinary dentists across the world, and specifically in the US, that have made this connection between better dental hygiene and lifespan. So definitely find a way, if you can, to clean your dog's teeth regularly. And then secondly, just move more. I think that this is not something too surprising. Like, we obviously understand this on the human side, but so many dogs just sit around at home all day and don't move. And it's just one of those things where, movement is life for really every living animal. So whether it's, your dog going from a 20-minute walk a day to a 40-minute walk a day, or a 5-minute walk to a 15-minute walk, like whatever you can do to get your dog moving more, is just going to present massive benefits to every single aspect of their life. So clean their teeth at some regular cadence and get them to move more, I'd say, is the two big things that could really help their health and happiness.
Good advice for most humans as well.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Chris, thanks so much.
Awesome. Cheers, Matt.
If you are listening and you are interested in exploding your own digital growth, you can get in touch with Jump 450 in the link below in the description. That is www.jump450.com. And don't forget to subscribe for more weekly episodes. We'll see you next time.